The sky over Washington, D.C. turned dark at noon, not from clouds, but from the massive ships that appeared without warning. People stopped and looked up. Cars crashed as drivers forgot to watch the road. News cameras pointed to the sky. On the largest screen in Times Square, regular TV shows cut off. The face that appeared wasn't human. It had purple skin, large eyes with no pupils, and a mouth that didn't move right when it spoke. People of Earth, I am Zortek of the Galactic Council. We come in peace. Jack Miller stood in the Pentagon War Room watching the same broadcast. As a Navy commander with 20 years of service, he had seen a lot, but nothing like this. "Sir, what do we do?" asked a young officer next to him. Jack didn't answer. Nobody knew what to do. The president called an emergency meeting. Leaders from Russia, China, the European Union, and 20 other countries joined by video. Jack was asked to attend as military advisor. "They want to meet," said the president. "They're sending down a ship in 6 hours. I need someone there who knows defense and can think on their feet." Jack looked up to find everyone staring at him. "Yes, sir," he said, though his mouth felt dry. Susan White joined the meeting late. She worked for the State Department and was the best diplomat America had. She was tall with short brown hair and eyes that missed nothing. "I'll go with Commander Miller," she said. "We need to show both strength and willingness to talk." The landing site was set up in a field outside the city. Soldiers formed a line. TV crews stayed behind them. Jack and Susan stood with the president and a small group of world leaders. The ship that came down was smaller than the ones above, but still bigger than any airplane on Earth. It made no sound as it landed. No engines, no wind, nothing. A door opened smoothly and a ramp extended. Zortek walked out with 4 guards. He was 7 feet tall with skin that shifted between purple and blue. His clothes looked like metal, but moved like cloth. "Greetings," he said. His voice sounded almost human, but came from a small device at his neck. "I represent the 24 species of the Galactic Council." The president stepped forward. "We welcome you to Earth." Zortek nodded. "We have been watching your planet for some time. You have reached a critical point in your development." Susan stepped forward. "We're eager to learn about the Council and establish friendly relations." Zortek looked at her with his large, empty eyes. "Yes, relations. That is why we are here." Something in his tone made Jack tense up. They moved to a big tent set up nearby. Inside were tables, chairs, and screens showing the ships in orbit. Jack counted 12 big ones and at least 30 smaller ones. "The Council has classified Earth as a pre-civilization planet," said Zortek once they were seated. "We have cities, technology, and culture going back thousands of years," said Susan. "What exactly does pre-civilization mean?" "You fight wars. You have weapons that can destroy your own planet. You let people go hungry while others have too much. These are not signs of true civilization." Jack frowned. With respect, every species must have gone through difficult periods in their development. Zortek shook his head. "Not like humans. Your history is exceptionally violent. The Council has voted to place Earth under protective quarantine." The president leaned forward. "Quarantine? What does that mean exactly?" "For your own safety, Council forces will establish guidance centers around your planet. We will help direct your development away from self-destruction." Susan's diplomatic smile didn't waver, but her eyes met Jack's. They both understood what wasn't being said. This wasn't first contact. This was the start of an occupation. "How long would this quarantine last?" asked Jack. "Until you are ready. Perhaps a century, perhaps more." The first ships started landing around the world within hours. The Council called them protection forces. Jack knew an invasion when he saw one. As he watched from the Pentagon window, he made a promise to himself. Earth would not stay under alien control for a century. Not if he had anything to do with it. 6 months had passed since the ships came. The world had changed completely. Jack Miller pulled his hood lower as he walked through what used to be downtown Chicago. Alien towers now stood where famous buildings once were. The towers glowed blue at night and sent signals to the big ships that never left orbit. Council officers patrolled the streets. They were easy to spot with their purple-blue skin and tall bodies. Humans who worked for them wore special badges and got extra food. Most people called them helpers, but Jack had other names for them. He ducked into an old subway entrance. The trains hadn't run in months. The council said Earth's technology was inefficient and shut much of it down. They promised better systems soon. People were still waiting. Deep in the tunnel, Jack pressed his hand against a hidden panel. A door slid open, revealing a room full of people and equipment. "Commander Miller," said a woman with red hair. Her name was Lisa Brown, once a top computer expert at NASA. Now she worked underground. "We got your message." "How many came?" Jack asked, looking around the room. 15 new recruits this week. People are getting braver." Jack nodded. The resistance was growing. When the council first arrived, most people believed their promises of help and guidance. Now they saw the truth. "Show me what you found," he said. Lisa led him to a table covered with maps and papers. "Council ships have been taking more than they said. These are all mining operations." She pointed to red dots spread across the map. "They're not just taking rare metals anymore. They're taking everything." Jack wasn't surprised. He had suspected from the beginning that Earth was targeted for its resources. The protective quarantine was just an excuse. "Any word from Susan?" Lisa asked. Jack shook his head. Susan White now worked in the Global Cooperation Government, the puppet organization the council set up to manage human affairs. She pretended to support the aliens while secretly gathering information for the resistance. It was dangerous work. "Nothing for 3 weeks. She can't risk contacting us too often." Across the city in a gleaming new building, Susan sat through another council meeting. She wore the clothes they gave her, a simple gray uniform with a silver badge. Her face showed nothing as Zortek spoke. "Human development is proceeding as expected," he said to the room of aliens and helper humans. "Resistance activities have decreased by 12% this month." Susan knew that was a lie. Resistance was growing everywhere, but the council didn't want to admit it. "Resource extraction is ahead of schedule," continued Zortek. "The homeworlds are pleased." A human helper raised his hand. "When will the promised technology transfers begin?" "People are asking about the improved food systems and medical care." Zortek's expression didn't change, but his skin darkened slightly. Susan had learned this was a sign of annoyance. "When humans prove they can be trusted with advanced technology. Your species has a history of turning tools into weapons." After the meeting, Susan carefully copied files from a council computer onto a tiny device hidden in her badge. She had been collecting information for months. The council thought humans couldn't understand their technology, but they were wrong. That night, in her small apartment given to her by the council, Susan found a note slipped under her door. It contained just 3 words: "Time running out." She understood. The council was moving faster than expected. They weren't just taking Earth's resources, they were stripping the planet. Once they had what they wanted, humans would be relocated to development centers off-world. No one who entered those centers ever returned. Susan hid the message and looked out her window at the alien ships glowing in the night sky. Somewhere out there, Jack and the others were planning. She had to get her information to them soon. The occupation was entering a new phase. Time was indeed running out for Earth. Alan Foster wiped sweat from his forehead as he worked. The basement was hot and stuffy, but it was one of the few places safe from council censors. Before the aliens came, he had been an engineer at a tech company. Now he was the Resistance's best hope. On the table in front of him sat pieces of alien technology. Some parts came from a damaged council drone. Others were smuggled out by workers at council bases. Getting these pieces had cost lives. "Any progress?" asked Jack, entering the room. Ellen looked up. Dark circles showed under his eyes. He hadn't slept much in days. "I think I found something," he said. "Look at this." He pointed to a small device connected to old human computers. On the screen, strange symbols flashed. "Their weapon systems are amazing," Alan said. "More advanced than anything we've ever made. But they have a weakness." Jack leaned closer. "What kind of weakness?" "They evolved beyond certain frequency patterns. Their sensors don't even register them anymore. It's like they forgot the basics while creating something new." Jack frowned. "In simple terms." Alan grinned for the first time in weeks. "They can't see old technology. Their systems are designed to detect advanced energy signatures. Our older weapons, ones that use certain radio frequencies or simple analog systems, they're practically invisible." Jack's eyes widened as he understood. "Are you saying we could use our old weapons against them?" "With some modifications, yes. They'd never see them coming." Across town, Susan White sat in a council strategy meeting. She had risen to become a senior human advisor, trusted by many aliens who thought she had accepted Earth's new place in the galaxy. Zortek displayed images of Earth before the council arrived. "As you can see, this species spent much of their resources on warfare. 20% of all human innovation came from military research." Another council member, a reptilian alien named Drax, spoke up. "Disturbing. No wonder they required intervention." "Indeed," said Zortek. "But this presents a unique opportunity. No other species in the council developed through such extensive conflict. We have much to learn from their battle tactics, primitive though they may be." Susan kept her face neutral, but her mind raced. The council wasn't just taking Earth's physical resources. They were studying human warfare. But why would peaceful aliens need that knowledge? After the meeting, she lingered near Zortek's office. When no one was looking, she slipped inside and placed a small device on his computer. It would copy files for 30 seconds before destroying itself. That night in her apartment, Susan reviewed what she had stolen. The files confirmed her worst fears. The council wasn't as united or peaceful as they claimed. They faced a threat from beyond their borders, another group of species that had been attacking frontier worlds. The council needed humanity's knowledge of warfare because they had forgotten how to fight. She had to get this information to Jack. It changed everything. The next day, while delivering reports to the council's communication center, Susan saw her chance. A service tunnel connected the center to an old subway line. Guards rarely checked it. She slipped away during a shift change and hurried through the dark tunnel. At the end, she found a resistance contact waiting. "Take this to Commander Miller," she said, handing over a small data chip. "Tell him it's about why they really came to Earth." The contact nodded and disappeared into the darkness. Susan turned to go back when lights suddenly flooded the tunnel. Council guards appeared, weapons raised. "Human Susan White," said the lead guard. "You are charged with espionage against the Galactic Council." Her cover was blown. As they took her away, Susan hoped the chip would reach Jack in time. Earth's future depended on it. In his workshop, Alan Foster had no idea about Susan's capture. He kept working on his discovery, finding ways to merge old human technology with stolen alien parts. "If this works," he muttered to himself, "the council is in for a very big surprise." Jack paced the floor of the underground base. The news of Susan's capture had hit everyone hard. She was not just their best source of information, she was their friend. "We have to rescue her," said Lisa, the computer expert. Jack nodded. "We will. But first we need to understand what she sent us." He held up the small data chip Susan had managed to get out before her capture. Alan had been working for hours to read it using modified council technology. "Got it," Alan called from his workbench. Everyone gathered around his screen. "The council is at war," Alan explained as he showed them the files. "Not here, but at the edge of their territory. They're fighting another group of aliens called the Varric. And they're losing." That's why they're so interested in our history of warfare, Jack said, understanding now. They evolved without it. They don't know how to fight a real war. Lisa pointed to another file. Look at this. Susan found their prison records. They're holding her at the North American Control Center. Jack's face hardened. Then that's where we're going. But not just to save Susan. We're going to launch Operation Throwback at the same time. For weeks, resistance cells had been preparing for this moment. Alan's discovery about Council technology had changed everything. Old weapons had been modified. Fighters had been trained. Now they needed a leader to bring it all together. Jack spent the next 3 days contacting resistance groups around the world. From the mountains of South America to the deserts of Africa to the islands of Asia, humans were ready to fight back. On the morning of the 4th day, a council guard entered Susan's cell. She looked up, expecting another interrogation. Instead, the guard checked the corridor and then turned back to her. "My name is Curvex," he said in a low voice. "Not all council members agree with what is happening on your planet." Susan stood up slowly. "You're helping me." Curvex nodded. "What we are doing here violates our own laws. Planets should be guided, not exploited. Some of us have formed a group within the council to oppose these actions." He handed her a small device. "This will disable the door locks. Tonight, during the shift change, you'll have 7 minutes to reach the east exit. Someone will be waiting." Before she could thank him, he was gone. That night, as promised, the device worked. Susan made her way through dark corridors, her heart pounding. At the east exit, she found not just someone but Jack himself waiting with 2 resistance fighters. "You came yourself," she whispered as they hurried toward a hidden vehicle. Jack smiled. Couldn't let anyone else have all the fun. As they drove away from the control center, Susan explained everything she had learned. The Council's peaceful evolution had left them unprepared for real conflict. Their technology was incredible, but they lacked the tactical thinking that came from thousands of years of human warfare. "Alan's discovery and your information gave us a real chance," Jack said. "We've established bases in places the Council doesn't monitor closely: deep mountains, underwater locations, old bunkers." They arrived at a new resistance base, hidden inside an abandoned mine. Hundreds of people were working, preparing weapons and equipment. "What is all this?" Susan asked in amazement. "Operation Throwback," Jack said with pride. "We're using modified 20th century technology combined with Council tech that Alan reverse-engineered. Analog systems, old radio frequencies, even updated versions of World War II tactics." Alan showed her what they had built: radar systems the Council couldn't detect, weapons that used frequencies their sensors ignored, and communication devices that seemed primitive but were completely invisible to alien monitoring. "The Council thinks we're primitive because of our history of warfare," Jack said. "They're about to learn that being primitive doesn't mean being weak." Susan looked around at the determined faces. "When do we start?" Jack checked his watch. "Global operations begin in 12 hours. The Council is about to get the surprise of their galactic lives." The day of attack began quietly. Council ships moved through Earth's skies, as they had for over a year now. Alien officers went about their business in control centers. None of them noticed anything unusual. Until the oceans erupted. Old nuclear submarines, thought to be disabled, rose from the depths. They had been hidden and modified with Alan's technology. Now they fired missiles at underwater Council mining operations. The missiles used simple guidance systems that Council sensors couldn't detect. In the Council's North American Control Center, alarms blared. "What is happening?" demanded Zortek, rushing into the command room. "Mining Station 7 is under attack," reported an officer. "Mining Stations 3 and 12 also report damage." "From what?" "Our sensors detected nothing." On Zortek's screen, more alerts appeared. Council bases in mountain regions were under attack from fighters using old aircraft that had been hidden in caves and valleys. The planes were nearly invisible to Council technology. "Impossible," whispered Zortek. Their weapons were all neutralized. In the sky above Australia, Council ships suddenly found themselves targeted by ground-based weapons. The ship's advanced shields, designed to stop energy weapons, couldn't block the simple projectiles humans were using. Jack Miller directed operations from a mobile command center hidden deep in the Rocky Mountains. Susan White worked beside him, coordinating resistance groups across continents. Europe is engaged, reported Lisa through their secure communication system. Asia and Africa are attacking mining operations. South America has taken down 3 Council bases. Jack nodded. Tell Alan to launch the communication virus. In his workshop, now moved to the mobile base, Alan activated the program he created by studying Council systems. The virus spread through the aliens' network, blocking their ability to coordinate defenses. Their ships can't talk to each other, Alan reported with a smile. Just like we planned. Council forces fell into confusion. They had never expected humans to fight back, and certainly not with technology they couldn't even detect. Their peaceful evolution had left them without the tactical thinking needed for battle. In orbit, Council ships tried to help their ground forces, but they found themselves under attack too. Humans had launched old satellites loaded with simple explosives. The satellites appeared as space junk on Council sensors until they detonated against the ship's hulls. This is not possible, said Zortek as reports of losses came in from around the planet. They are primitives. How are they doing this? An image appeared on his screen. It was Jack Miller, broadcasting on a frequency that overrode Council communications. This message is for the Galactic Council, Jack said. For a year, you've occupied our planet. You've taken our resources. You've treated us like children. Today, you learn that humanity will not be conquered. Zortek stared at the screen in shock. You cannot win against the Council. We are 24 species united. We have technology you cannot imagine. What you have, replied Jack, is arrogance. You thought our history of warfare made us primitive. You forgot that it also made us survivors. Around the world, Council forces retreated to their main bases. Their mining operations stood abandoned or destroyed. Their orbital platforms burned in the sky. In the command center, Susan received a message from their ally, Curvex. The Council High Command is panicking, he reported. They have never faced resistance like this before. Some members are calling for full withdrawal from Earth. Jack looked at Susan. We push the advantage. Have all units target their main communication hubs next. As the sun set on the first day of battle, humanity had done the impossible. They have fought back against the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, and they were winning. In his private chamber, Zortek sent an emergency message to the full Galactic Council. The words were difficult for him to type. Request immediate assistance. Earth's situation has become problematic. Humans are using warfare tactics unknown to Council species. Advise on how to proceed. For the first time in Council history, a protective force was asking for protection itself. 3 days after Operation Throwback began, Earth had changed again. Council forces were in retreat. Their main bases remained, surrounded by human fighters, but their control of the planet was broken. In orbit, most of the large Council ships had moved to a higher position, out of range of Earth's weapons. They could have destroyed cities from there, but they didn't. The Council was confused, not vengeful. Jack stood on a hill overlooking what had been a Council regional headquarters. Now it flew a human flag. We could keep pushing, said Lisa, who had joined him. Drive them off Earth completely. Jack shook his head. That's not the plan. We don't want to just kick them out. We want a place at their table. A small aircraft landed in the field behind them. Susan stepped out, followed by Curvex. The alien looked nervous to be surrounded by humans, but he had proven himself a true ally. The Council has called an emergency meeting, said Susan. They'd want to talk. Jack nodded. That's what we've been waiting for. Where? Their main ship in orbit, said Curvex. They have agreed to hear Earth's case before the full Council. This has never happened for a pre-civilization planet. 2 hours later, Jack, Susan, and Alan found themselves on a shuttle heading into space. None of them had been off Earth before. They watched through the window as their blue planet grew smaller below them. "Remember," said Susan as they approached the massive council ship, "we're not here to threaten. We're here to negotiate." Jack nodded, but from a position of strength. The council chamber was a large room with seats arranged in a circle. Representatives from 24 alien species filled most seats. Some looked almost human. Others were completely different. Beings of light, creatures with multiple limbs, even what appeared to be living clouds of gas. Zortek stood in the center. The council recognizes the representatives of Earth. Jack, Susan, and Alan took their places in the center of the circle. Susan spoke first, as they had planned. "Members of the Galactic Council," she said, "for the past year, your forces have occupied our world. You called it protection. We call it invasion." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some sounded angry, others confused. "Your species is violent," said a tall, thin alien with 6 eyes. "Your history is filled with warfare. The Council acted to protect the galaxy from your aggression." "Our history is filled with war," agreed Susan, "but also with peace, with art, with science, with all the things that make a civilization. Yes, we fight, but we also build, we also love, we also dream." Jack stepped forward. "You saw our capacity for violence and assumed it made us primitive. You were wrong. It made us strong. It taught us to survive against all odds." "We could destroy your cities from orbit," said Zortek, but his voice lacked conviction. Alan spoke up for the first time. "But you won't, because you're not conquerors. You're explorers and scholars who forgot that sometimes you have to fight for what matters." Susan walked around the circle, looking at each council member. "We know about your war with the Varric. We know you're losing because your species have evolved beyond warfare. That's admirable, but it's left you vulnerable." The chamber fell silent. Even Zortek seemed surprised that they knew this. "What do you want?" asked a being made of shimmering light. "Recognition," said Jack simply. "Earth is a full member of the Council, not a protectorate. Our independence guaranteed. Your forces withdrawn." "Impossible," said Zortek. "You are not advanced enough. We just defeated your occupation forces using technology you considered obsolete," countered Jack. "I think that qualifies us." Hervex stepped forward from his place among the council. "I have lived among humans. I have seen their creativity, their resilience. Yes, they can be violent, but they can also be kind, even to enemies." He looked at Jack and Susan. "They spared our forces when they could have destroyed them. That shows wisdom beyond their years." The council members talked among themselves. Susan could see they were divided. Some still saw humans as dangerous primitives. Others were beginning to understand that humanity's unique history might be valuable. Finally, the being of light spoke again. "We will vote on Earth's status. Until then, there will be peace between our peoples." As Jack, Susan, and Alan were escorted from the chamber, Susan whispered, "That went better than expected." Jack nodded. "Now we wait, and hope they make the right choice." 3 weeks passed while the council debated. On Earth, council forces stayed in their bases, but no longer controlled human cities. People began to rebuild, though everyone knew the future was uncertain. Jack, Susan, and Alan remained on the council ship as Earth's representatives. They were given comfortable rooms but were watched constantly. Only Hervex visited them regularly, bringing news of the council's discussions. "They are divided," he told them one evening. "Some see the wisdom in accepting humans as equals. Others fear what might happen if your species joins the council with its knowledge of warfare." "We don't want to bring war to the galaxy," said Susan. "We just want to be free." Hervex's skin changed to a lighter blue, which they had learned meant he was hopeful. "The vote happens tomorrow. I believe you have more friends than you know." The next day, they were led back to the Great Council chamber. All 24 species were present. The room was silent as they entered. Zortek stood in the center. His manner was different now, less proud, more respectful. "The Galactic Council has reached a decision regarding Earth," he announced. "After much debate, we acknowledge that our assessment of human civilization was incomplete." Jack and Susan exchanged looks. This was more than they had expected. "While your history contains much violence," continued Zortek, "it also shows remarkable progress. In a few thousand years, you have advanced from simple tools to space travel. Your art, your music, your literature, these show the soul of a true civilization." A beam made of flickering energy floated forward. "More importantly, you have shown wisdom in victory. You could have destroyed our forces. Instead, you chose to talk." Zortek nodded. "The Council has voted. Earth will be recognized as a full-member world, with all rights and responsibilities. Our forces will withdraw from your planet within 30 days. The chamber erupted in sounds. Some like cheers, others like strange music. Even the aliens who had opposed Earth's membership seemed to accept the decision. "There is more," said Zortek when the noise died down. "As you know, the Council faces a threat from the Varick Collective. We would request Earth's assistance in this matter, not as soldiers, but as teachers." Jack stepped forward. "What exactly are you asking?" "Your species has unique experience in defending against aggression. We need that knowledge. Will you share it?" 6 months later, Jack stood on the deck of a new ship. It wasn't built by humans alone, but it carried Earth's flag alongside the Council symbol. As Earth's new military liaison to the Council, he was heading to the frontier worlds to help train defense forces. Susan had remained on Earth as the planet's first ambassador to the Council. New alien technology was helping rebuild what had been damaged during the occupation. Medical advances from across the galaxy were curing diseases that humans had fought for centuries. Alan Foster led a joint technology team, combining human innovation with alien science. His work had already created new defense systems for frontier worlds based on both human and Council ideas. On the Council headquarters world, a new wing had been added to the Great Library. Inside, visitors from across the galaxy studied human history, not just the wars, but the peace treaties that followed. Not just the weapons, but the art created by those who survived conflict. A young Council member approached Jack as he watched distant stars through the ship's window. "Is it true," asked the alien, "that humans once fought among themselves? That you had wars between your own people?" Jack nodded. "For most of our history, it's not something we're proud of, but it shaped us. Yet you found peace." "We're still finding it," Jack said. "That's the thing about humans. We never stop trying to be better than we were yesterday." As the ship moved through space toward the frontier, Jack thought about how strange the past 2 years had been. Aliens had come to Earth thinking humans were primitive because of their violent history. Now that same history was helping protect peaceful species across the galaxy. The Galactic Council had been shocked when Earth attacked back. But the real surprise was what came after. Not just victory, but wisdom. Not just resistance, but partnership. Humanity had found its place among the stars not by conquering, but by teaching others how to survive. And in doing so, they had learned something about themselves too. That their greatest strength wasn't their ability to fight. It was their ability to make peace after the fighting stopped.